Imagine trying to sleep while rain has been falling for 3 straight days. There is no glass window between you and the storm, no heater, no waterproof mattress. The ground beneath your body is getting colder and wetter by the hour. You're exhausted, but exhaustion doesn't make the problem disappear. You still have to sleep, and that creates a strange question. How did humans ever learn to close their eyes when the world around them was dangerous? Because sleep is one of the most vulnerable things an animal can do. For several hours, you stop searching for food, stop moving, and dramatically reduce your awareness of what is happening around you. Yet humans didn't simply learn to sleep. We gradually learned how to make the environment safe enough for sleep to happen. And the evidence suggests that this story began long before bedrooms, houses, or even modern humans existed. The first prehistoric sleeping solution may have been surprisingly simple. Change the ground. Imagine lying directly on wet soil after a night of rain. The surface steals warmth from your body, your clothing becomes damp, and every movement pushes you deeper into the cold. A layer of grass, leaves, bark, or animal hide changes that equation. It creates separation, and that separation can make the difference between merely surviving the night and waking up dangerously cold. The problem is that archaeologists rarely find ancient beds. Stone tools can survive for enormous periods of time. Bones can remain buried. Charcoal from an old fire can leave a recognizable trace. But vegetation rots. Wood disappears. Hides decay. The very things that may have made prehistoric sleep possible are often the least likely to survive. That's why archaeologists sometimes have to reconstruct ancient sleeping behavior from tiny clues. At South Africa's Border Cave, researchers found evidence of ancient plant material that had been deliberately arranged into living surfaces. At Sibadu Cave, even more remarkable traces of plant bedding survived, including plants that may have provided protection against insects. And that changes the image of prehistoric humans. They weren't necessarily finding random leaves and collapsing on them. They could observe their surroundings, remember what worked, and repeat it. A particular plant might stay dry. Another might discourage insects. A certain location might remain protected from wind. Over generations, these observations could become shared knowledge. And this is one of the most important ideas in human evolution. Technology doesn't always begin with a complicated invention. Sometimes it begins when someone notices that one small change makes survival easier. But bedding could only solve part of the problem. If rain continued through the night, the ground would eventually become saturated. So humans needed something above them. And that's where shelter enters the story. A roof sounds ordinary to us, because we've almost completely forgotten what it means to live without one. But a roof is an extraordinary piece of environmental technology. It takes something falling from the sky and redirects it away from your body. Branches, hides, grass, bark, stone, different environments offer different materials, and humans learned to combine whatever was available. The archaeological evidence for the earliest shelters is often frustratingly incomplete. A wooden structure can disappear. A roof can collapse and return to the soil. Even a carefully constructed wall may leave behind nothing more than a strange pattern in ancient sediment. Some discoveries, such as stone arrangements at very old human occupation sites, have been interpreted as possible evidence of shelters, but interpretations can remain controversial, because natural geological processes can create surprisingly organized patterns. That uncertainty is important. We shouldn't turn every circle of stones into an ancient house. Instead, the evidence tells us something more interesting. We are probably missing most of the shelters humans actually built. Think about that. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans could have been constructing temporary places to sleep. That simply vanished after they left. The archaeological record may therefore show only fragments of a much larger history. But shelter wasn't only about rain, it was also about temperature. And this is where fire transformed the equation. Fire created warmth, light, and smoke. It could dry materials and discourage insects. More importantly, it allowed humans to create a small zone where the climate was different from the world outside. But fire came with a requirement. Someone had to keep it alive. That means ancient sleep may have depended not only on architecture, but on cooperation. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer communities have observed that people within a sleeping group often have different patterns of waking and sleeping. Older and younger individuals may naturally become active at different times. The result is fascinating. Even when nobody is formally assigned to guard the camp, everyone may not be unconscious simultaneously. Someone wakes. Someone shifts beside the fire. Someone hears a sound outside. Someone else is already awake. We cannot simply project modern observations backward and claim this is exactly how prehistoric humans behaved, but it offers a plausible window into an important possibility. Humans may have been protected at night, not just by shelters, but by other humans. The group itself became part of the sleeping environment, and then humans entered places where even ordinary shelters weren't enough. During the Ice Age, large areas of Europe were cold, windy, and remarkably open. Trees were scarce in some regions, so if you needed a structure, you couldn't simply walk into a forest and cut down a pile of timber. Humans adapted. At Mazirikh in Ukraine, archaeologists discovered remains of Ice Age dwellings constructed using large quantities of mammoth-bone. The animal that provided food could also provide materials for shelter. Bones could form structural elements. Hides could provide covering. The result was an enclosed space capable of separating people from the brutal environment outside. It's difficult to look at discoveries like this and still imagine ancient humans as passive victims of nature. They weren't merely enduring the environment, they were redesigning it. That pattern eventually became even more sophisticated. In places where rain was common, the goal wasn't to stop every drop, it was to control where the water went. A sloped roof sends rain away. Raised sleeping platforms keep the body above damp surfaces. Thick walls slow the movement of cold air. A hearth changes the temperature inside. Little by little, humans created artificial environments that were warmer, drier, cleaner, and more predictable than the landscapes around them. At Skara Brae in Orkney, Scotland, people were living in stone houses thousands of years ago, with built-in sleeping spaces and central hearths. The architecture reveals something profound. The sleeping area wasn't an afterthought, it was part of the design. The entire structure helped create a protected interior world. And that's really what happened over the course of human history. We didn't invent one perfect solution to sleeping outdoors. We accumulated thousands of small solutions. Better bedding, better shelter, better fire management, better insulation, better understanding of materials, better cooperation. Eventually, all of those ideas became so normal that modern humans stopped noticing them. Tonight, when rain hits your roof, you probably won't think about any of this. You won't calculate where the water is going. You won't wonder whether the ground beneath you is dry. You won't stay awake listening for every sound outside. You simply close your eyes, and that ordinary moment hides an extraordinary history. Somewhere along the human journey, our ancestors stopped accepting the night exactly as they found it. They changed the ground. They controlled fire. They gathered materials. They built barriers. They learned which plants were useful. They shared protection with one another, and eventually they built entire environments designed around the simple act of resting. The remarkable part is that there was never one inventor. No prehistoric person suddenly woke up and announced that humanity needed bedrooms. The solution accumulated slowly through countless experiments by people whose names we will never know. One person discovered that dry vegetation made a better sleeping surface. Another learned that a particular shelter stayed warmer. Another figured out how to keep rain from entering. Another kept the fire alive through the night. And eventually, those tiny discoveries became the invisible technology surrounding you right now. So the next time you hear rain tapping against a window while you're lying comfortably in bed, remember what you're actually experiencing, not just sleep. A world that your ancestors spent thousands of generations learning how to build. The storm is still outside, but for the first time in human history, you don't have to fight it. You can simply close your eyes and let the rain fall. If you enjoy documentaries that uncover the hidden stories behind ordinary human life, subscribe for the next one.